I live here my life. I stay strong, I stay wise. I live here my life. I stay strong, I stay wise. I live here my life.
Well, hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are. Hello, Facebook, YouTube, and hello to my podcast listeners. Listen, we are in New England, and I want you to know if you hear a lot of noise, it's because I think God is tap dancing because the thunder is doing what it's doing, and the lightning is doing what it's doing. So we are keeping our fingers crossed and hoping that all systems will remain go with electricity, with this platform. And yeah, it's going to be a great time today. We're actually talking with extroverts and introverts. We're going to learn some interesting facts and we're going to dispel some myths. So, this is going to be an absolutely fun segment on today. Please like and share if you are a YouTuber. Please subscribe. Facebook, please share the video and share the wealth with somebody else. It's a great day to be alive. It's a great time that we're living in. And, be strong, be wise, keep enhancing your life. That's what we do because life is worth living. Yes, yes, yes. I'm excited today. I want to say thank you to everyone who came on last week. It just always a great time with our guests. We had Raven and Rachel. My days are getting mixed up. But anyway, we had a great time with Raven and Rachel, and we did Girls Talk. I don't know if you were on, but it was absolutely amazing. We are so excited, and we had such a wonderful time that we're going to do Men Talk as well. That's going to be a great conversation because we want to hear what the fellas have to say about life, love, and legacy. So yes, please come on and I'll let you know what that date is going to be. Next week, we're going to have Mr. Chris Robinson. He's a coach, counselor, and an author. And the book is called Come On, Man. So that's going to be our topic next week. Come on, man. And this is about taking on the challenges faced by men. So I'm really excited. He is a Texan, and they say everything is big in Texas. So we're gonna have Mr. Chris Robinson come on and talk about what men face, what the challenges that men face. I love having conversation. I think one of the things that we do is we don't talk enough about the important things and about reality, real things, not reality shows, but what is real. What is, how can we deal with it? How can we conquer it? And how can we move on and live a greater life? We also have Mr. Jason Galvez coming up very soon. I call him Coach J. This is going to be a phenomenal segment. He is an interpersonal relationship counselor as well as betrayal trauma. So basically, this is talking about how you need to be healthy with you in a relationship before you can be in a good relationship with someone else. And then he also talks about betrayal trauma. And sometimes we betray our own selves. So let's not be quick to point the finger, but let's do it this way. It's like, I don't want to disappoint myself. So another great segment that's coming up. So listen, guys, you ready? We're going to talk about extroverts and introverts. And before I bring my guest on, actually, I'll bring them on and then I'll go here. So my special guest is Ms. Dawn Marcotte. Hey, Dawn, how are you?
Hey, I'm excited to be here. Thanks, Patrice.
Listen, I love that you're here. I'm so excited. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Dawn.
Well, so I'm a mom. I am a runner, a reader of all things mystery. I love mysteries. And I am a writer, a freelance writer. So I just published my newest book. I'm very excited about that, but I'm already thinking about my next one. So
tell us about that. The one that
the one I just published is called Success Guaranteed: 9 Lies Online Entrepreneurs Need to Know. And it's available on Amazon. But the idea is to kind of bust those myths that keep new and aspiring entrepreneurs from being successful. It's really a lot about mindset and the things that you need to know, the myths versus the realities, so that if you're interested in building an online business, you know what to expect. So you are more likely to keep going and be successful rather than just giving up after 60 days or 90 days because it's not what you thought it was going to be.
See, I love smart people like you because people like me don't have to reinvent the wheel. I love your brilliance, and we'll definitely talk about the book a little bit more at the towards the end.
Okay.
Let's bring on my returning guest. My returning guest, Miss Rachel Cunningham Xavier. Does someone have? I'm getting an echo. Does someone have the while we wait on their phones? If you just turn it down, if you do. So Miss Rachel Cunningham Xavier, how you doing, Rachel?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Hold on a second. I apologize. Make sure it's not me. No. All right. Let's see. Okay. Does anybody have while we wait up and it's not turned down? I'm getting a very wicked echo.
No, I don't hear the echo on this end.
No, I'm getting the echo too.
Okay, let me just bear with us. Okay, hold on a sec. Okay, is that better? A little better. All right, I think that, no, I still hear it, but it's a little bit faint. Bear with us, we're having some technical difficulties. Certainly have all of my stuff off. All right, well, we're gonna work to keep going. I don't know what it is. So, can anybody else hear it, or are you guys clear?
I don't hear anything on my end.
I can hear it, and maybe
I can hear it too.
Turn down our mics a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, everyone, turn your mics down just a little. I turned mine down.
Oh, I can't hear it anymore. It's good
What?
now.
Yay!
Yay.
Wonderful, wonderful. So welcome, Fadette. Welcome, Rachel. You are two of my returning guests, and I'm absolutely excited about it. And I purposely selected you all to come on today because the four of us balance each other off. Today we're talking about extroverts and introverts, some of the myths we'll dispel, and we'll also talk about some of the famous introverts and extroverts that you may be surprised because, you know, people oftentimes want to box things in or box people in because it's not to label anyone. It's really to get a better understanding of how their personality works so we can have better relations. You know, is that right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So just a couple of the myths. Still catching that. Still catching the echo just a tad. So here are 7 myths. Only extroverts like to socialize. Introverts don't take risks. I know that's a lie because Fadette is an introvert and she takes me on these excursions. She actually had us go on these tree obstacles that were like 1,000 feet in the air. And they tell you it's easier to go forward than to go backwards. So if you want to go back, you want to retreat, you probably need to go forward. Okay, so anyway, we know that's not a myth, that's a lie. Extroverts are happier. We know that's not true. An introvert is more likely to deal with mental illness. That is so false. Extroverts are much more confident. That's not true. I'm an extrovert. Introverts are quiet. That's not true. Not necessarily true. They may not want to talk to you, but they're not quiet. And lastly, introverts and extroverts won't get along. That's just totally false. Wrong answer. Matter of fact, I find that it's a great balance. for me, it's a great balance. Because if we were all off the chain, like Miss Over the Top, Rachel Cunningham, Xavier, it would be an explosive energy in the room, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but just it would be. So let's go to you, Dawn. Let's talk about it. Give us some of your wisdoms about introverts and extroverts before we jump into anything else.
Well, so I'm an introvert. I don't know if you're familiar with Myers-Briggs personality type testing, but I am right on the line between introvert and extrovert, and I just lean a little towards the introvert. So I kind of have a foot in both worlds.
Okay.
But one of the things that I've noticed that a lot of people think about introverts is the anxiety. They think that we're all really anxious in crowds or things like that. And that's just not true. I have been some form of executive assistant for many, many years in my corporate world before I went full-time as a freelancer. But that's a lot of peopling, as my child calls it, right? And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But when I came home, I was done. I needed some quiet time. I needed some time away from my family, whatever. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand. It's not that we don't like people. It's that it drains us. We will go to that party. We will be on that podcast. We will, whatever it is. But we need to restore our energy when we're done in a way that an extrovert would not find refreshing at all. So that's kind of my personal take on it.
That's interesting. So as an extrovert, and I'm certain Rachel can definitely confirm, affirm, and verify this. Oftentimes people believe that because you're an extrovert, that you're always comfortable, even like meeting new people, that everything that looks like a risk, and it may be, people believe that you're always comfortable. And that's not necessarily true. But I am a risk taker. Matter of fact, on Saturday, I went to a bridal shower and I purposely sat with a young lady because she was sitting at a table by herself. And I want you to know that was uncomfortable for me because I'm like, okay, we have the same, does she want to be bothered? What am I going to talk about? I know nothing about her. So interesting enough, at first she was a little, but I kept on until we had a good conversation going and laughing and she was comfortable. But, it's not always easy I do it. I mean, even on the elevator, sometimes I'll challenge myself and I'm like, you know what, just say something. Good morning, but I'm not that person that is just comfortable, but I will do it. And then if they don't talk back, I'm like, or not. So, Rachel, you're on mute, Rachel. What do you say about it? So
I definitely agree. Like, it's sometimes super uncomfortable to be the first one, but I feel like a lot, what's a little bit different, I think, from an extrovert than an introvert is that we more than likely process things externally, as opposed to introverts, they process a lot of things internally.
Sure.
So that is like a kind of a processing outwardly in introduction, as opposed to an introvert will probably step back a little bit to see how that person interacts. It's a little bit of different processing than that. But I definitely agree. It's sometimes very uncomfortable for me to come or to go to people, especially like in my profession. I work in career and professional development for a university, and we go to a lot of networking events. And sometimes it's very uncomfortable to go up to somebody you don't necessarily know, and I know nothing about their profession, but just have to talk and figure out what we do have in common so I can get your information to help a student, So it's definitely some uncomfortable moments and conversations that I still have to have as an extrovert.
Now, what's interesting to me, I've watched Fadette. Fadette a lot of times will speak before I will. I know we've gone out and the conversation happens. I just get in it. But a lot of times Fadette is the one that, brings the thunder. Just the other day, she and the other superhero guy, he was our waiter, but she started the conversation. And, of course I jumped in and Yeah. So for that, what do you have to say about that? Because people would expect me to be the one, but you do it more than I do actually.
Yeah, I believe that's one of the myths. Like Don, I am familiar with the Myers Briggs. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Yep.
And I've done
Yep.
it several times for fun, and I am way over any introvert. Like, there's no question, there's no middle ground. I'm way over there. But what I have found, and I do believe that there are some things that come with that, and there are some traits that come with that. I don't believe one size fits all. Well, what I have done is I've trained myself because I recognize that in a lot of areas, in most areas of my life, I had to be around people. I go to church and I sing and I've started a business. So some of the quirks or the traits or whatever you want to label it that comes with what we label as an introvert is not conducive to certain things. And so I've had to train myself. One of the things that I would absolutely oh, now I'm going to say this in front of everybody. I was horrified. So after church, we have a very social, kind congregation. I mean, it's just lovely to be around. But one of the things I just did not like to do is after church hold small talk. For an introvert, holding small talk is like I don't want to do small talk. I'm not comfortable with small talk. Either it's deep connective conversation with one or two people, or please just let me go home. I don't want to talk about the weather and how you're doing with 25 people after church. But that's just not, it's not friendly, it's not embracing. So I really had to train myself. So what I trained myself to do is initiate conversations. Like, I trained myself to walk up to people, hey, how you doing? So now it's almost second nature. So, to someone I may seem very talkative, or, oh my gosh, she starts a conversation, but it doesn't mean it's something that comes to me naturally. I had to develop into that. And that's one of the myths that people believe about introverts. Oh, we're shy. That's not true. We're mean. That's not true. We don't like people. That's not true. Like Mrs. Xavier said, we process things differently. And it is true, Dawn, after there's a big event, I am spent. I have to go
Yeah.
home and just really replenish. And I'm not an extrovert, so I don't know, but I would imagine for extroverts, like, that was great. I'm energized. Let's do this. Let's do that. And for an introvert, and I imagine that I know that there are different types of introverts that, for some of us, we need to go home and just kind of sit back and relax and just kind of recuperate from all of the people and all of the noise and the chatter and all of the personalities that are around us. It can be draining, for lack of a better word.
Now, it's interesting with small talk. That's not. I had to train myself as well. Either I, I can introduce myself and then kind of like, but that's something I had to train myself.
Yeah.
Um, what and how to do as well. I wasn't great at. I still don't know if I'm great at it. I do it, but I can't. I can at least make someone else feel comfortable, even if I don't. And that's what I did on Saturday.
It's so true. That's one of the things. I happen to have a child who is on the autism spectrum. So social interaction was a struggle for her when she was younger. And I think part of the reason that I am maybe more extroverted than I normally would be is because I had to teach her, or help teach her, how do you have small talk? How do you start a conversation? How do you interact with people? And so just by helping her learn how to do it, it got me more comfortable with
Sure.
those activities. And so that was really eye-opening to see, to learn the connective, how important it is to connect that way. It's like the mortar between bricks. If you don't have those little conversations with people on an ongoing basis, you're not going to build that friendship. You need to have
Right.
that constant communication. And so that was just, in a way, that was really amazing to me, to help me as well as helping her.
Wow.
Something else Fredette said about being energized. Now, for me personally, after events, I am like charged. Even a lot of times after these, when the conversation is, I am like, yes. Matter of fact, last week was definitely one of those that I was just like, oh my God, that was so good. And sometimes it's a subject matter, but I actually, hi Samantha Lucky. Some of my Facebook viewers are speaking. Richard, hello. Cynthia, hello. Come on in, join the conversation. Please chime in. I love the interaction. So if you've got a question or a comment, please, please, please. Well, let me just say that Samantha Lucky, you're an extrovert. If you tell me anything differently, I'll choke you. I'm
Yes,
just kidding. Now, Samantha is great at small talk.
Mhm.
She is kind of the honorary mistress of ceremonies. Hi, Sam. And she's good at it. I mean, she's able to. She it's just her. Like she can tell the dry jokes, but it'll make you laugh. And she's just quick witted. She's so cute. Like you just can't help it. And love her, love her. But oftentimes I'm very charged because I want to share information. I
Yes.
want people to think about things differently. I'd also like to say again, I said, with extroverts and introverts, it's not like that's that's the whole part of us. We are influenced by many things. For instance, I'm an only child. So you might think that I'm an introvert because at some times because I can be just as quiet as I talk a lot. It just depends on what's going on. If I'm processing something, or if I have to do something really serious. So it depends on when you catch me. So a person could be mistaken, and again, that's not the most important thing about us. There's so many other factors that make up our total selves. So today is just a day of identifying and learning how to communicate and have relations. I've learned so much from Fredette because she's an introvert, and I think it's important that we do get these understandings because if there's something that they're not comfortable with, then as a covenant person or a sister or a friend,
Mhm.
it's my responsibility to, the only thing that I have to tell the truth, it's just getting better. The only thing that I will do, there are certain times that I will post her picture on Facebook. Yeah, it was her birthday. Happy birthday. It was her birthday. So, I get the once a year pass, you know,
Paparazzi.
Once a year.
once a year pass. I'm doing a little better.
Yes, you
So
are.
I just believe that, and let's talk about that. Our differences are not bad. Just
Mm-mm.
people label everything good, it's bad, it's good. No, it's not bad or good. It is what it is. How can we make it work? And that's so important. So,
That's one of the things I find frustrating when I'm on social media, because I'm on Facebook a lot,
mhm.
is this idea that if you're an introvert, you're somehow broken. Because Facebook, a lot of the advice you get for social media marketing and business is talking about put yourself out there, do this, do that, do this, do that, do this, do that. And if you're an introvert, you're not necessarily comfortable with a lot of the advice. And it kind of comes across a lot as if you're broken. There's something wrong with you. Why don't you want to do a Facebook Live? Why don't you want to put, your picture out, whatever it is?
Mhm.
And that can get a little frustrating because I'm not broken. There's nothing wrong with me. I am who I
Exactly.
am. Just because I don't want to do it the way you're telling me I need to be doing it doesn't make me broken. And I just find that frustrating.
I agree with Dawn. If you read some of the information that's out there, that is, heaven knows where it comes from. It does come across that an introvert is a depressed, high level anxiety, walking on eggshells. Oh my God, agoraphobic person who has OCD and stays locked up in the bedroom, and that's just not true. And again, one size does not fit all. I mean, yes, I do believe that there are some, traits that come along with that, but just because you're an introvert doesn't mean that you'll have the same, traits or quirks or mannerisms and that someone else does. Me and Dom may be categorized or certain things that we do as introvert or how we process information, but that doesn't mean that our behavior is the same. So I totally agree that we're not broken, and it doesn't mean that we hate people or oh my goodness, don't touch them or they don't like to talk. It's just a way that we process and the preference of how we spend our time and and how we do certain things. So that's a wonderful statement.
I'm going to ask you to continue because Smart went over here. My charge is leaving me. So please continue until I hook myself up. Okay. Thank you.
And I would agree with that too, because I am, my husband is an introvert. And in the beginning, I had to really get used to and I consider myself an extreme extrovert. Like I go up to anybody. He had to get used to it too. Like he was like, why are you saying hi to everybody? Why are you saying hi to everybody we pass in the parking lot? Like, can you not say hi to everyone? And I'm like, well, I don't know. It's just my thing. Like I didn't even notice I was doing it. But I also had to get used to him being an introvert and processing internally too, because I would be like, are you okay? Are you upset at me? Because you're not really talking to me right now. And I had to get used to that too. Like, just because he's quiet doesn't mean he's mad at you. He's just processing different things differently. Like, calm down. It's not all about you, Rachel. So it definitely kind of like broke down my own personal stereotypes of what I thought an introvert was. And it just enlightened me to different processes. That's why I'm like, no, it's just people process things differently, and that's okay. Like it's not a bad or good, it just is what it is. Like I process externally and other people process things internally.
That's hysterical because my husband does exactly the same thing. Says hi to everyone. I mean, I'm in the checkout at the grocery store and he starts talking to the clerk.
That's
and
me.
I'm like, right? No, put the groceries in the bag. Let's go.
My husband says, leave them alone. They might not want to talk to you.
Really? I mean, they're busy people. Exactly. And my mother-in-law is the same way. She's another extrovert too. So she does the same. And she remembers, she knows everything about everybody she's ever talked to. It's just, and it amazes me that she does that. And I love interacting with extroverts for that reason, because you guys just amaze me. But yeah, that just drives me nuts when we're going places and my husband.
You know, what about it drives you nuts is that you feel like you have to sit and talk to that person too.
Yes, now I have to get involved and speak. I don't even know them. Come on.
Oh, that is so funny. It's so
But you know, Rachel, you raise a valid point about getting to understand the other person, because as an introvert, I think we also have to understand our traits. Like I understand that, like I stated earlier, that, well, you know, some things are not necessarily beneficial, especially if you want to have relationships. And a lot of people may not understand my actions. Like when I don't want to talk, it's not that I'm mad. It's not that I don't want to be bothered necessarily. I just don't want to talk. And I may force myself. And fortunately, I'm blessed to have friends who have been friends with me long enough to know that I'm just not going to be all about that. Now, if necessary, I can be a certain way, you know, energy and we're not Eeyores. I think people think we're just Eeyores, and because I have a certain type of energy doesn't mean I'm an extrovert, and just because I'm an introvert doesn't mean I'm an Eeyore. But there are points in times, like I have seasons where, you know what, I shut down a little bit, not shut down emotionally or mentally, but I don't call, or I may not talk because I just don't want to. I don't.
right.
It's not that I don't love you or we're not friends. I just don't have anything to say. I'm processing. I'm enjoying. I'm reading. I'm looking. I'm researching. But to someone else who's I learned from one of my friends. She said, "Hey, Rashana, love language is some people like to talk and some people have." So I'm learning that I can't just allow the excuse of being an introvert to just, okay, I'm an introvert and I act this way and just take it. So I'm learning that, no, I use the fact that I'm an introvert, understand yourself, and then understand others, and kind of break some habits that you may have that are labeled as an introvert so you can have healthy relationships. Like, I don't mind the talking, but Brian will say when she gets back on, I used to call her goofy. She's better, but I mean, she's just like Rachel. Oh my goodness, when I first met her, I'm telling you, she was a lot like Rachel, octane, high octane all the time. And I'm like, could you just take it down a notch? Could you just stop it? But those are the yings and the yangs and the differences. I mean, would you really want to be in a relationship with yourself or somebody who's exactly like you?
Oh, true.
Because being around an extrovert, I find to be refreshing. Because you can live inside your own mind so much, or just, be reflective, because introverts are very reflective. Everything, you got to reflect on everything. Everything's got to be reflective and analyze and think
Analyze
and
everything.
analyze everything. I must reflect. What kind of peanut butter? Let me reflect on it. Everything is, but when you're around an extrovert, there's a certain type of energy and a balance that comes with that. So Brian, I was just telling Rachel when I first met you, I used to call you Goofy, and in my head, I'm like, if you could just bring it down a notch, I would be so appreciative. but I find that it's a good balance and it's refreshing, because sometimes, for example, the pandemic, and I read an article where it said that for the introvert, it's no big deal, and this is heaven. That's not true. That's
It's
not
not.
true. And if you're an introvert, you should recognize that you can go onto the unhealthy side. So you have to make yourself do certain things. So when you're armed with the knowledge of things like introvert and extrovert, you still take it with a grain of salt, but you take that knowledge and you're like, you know what, I recognize this trait in myself. And yes, during this time in the world and during my relationships, I do recognize that I do that. And it's not necessarily productive, or people may not understand it. So it's wonderful that Rachel works to understand her husband, and I work to know that people may not understand what I'm doing. You haven't called, you're not talking. It's okay for that talk. They don't understand that you're processing. They don't understand that you're not mad. So I think it's on both ends. We have to appreciate each other and kind of, okay, you got to break yourself out of this habit. Train yourself. Train yourself.
That's
I hope.
true. I was thinking, sorry, go ahead.
No, I didn't even know if you could hear me. Go ahead. You go. I'll go ahead.
That just made me reflect for that on what you were saying, because now that I'm reflecting on being an extrovert, like there's certain things that if I am forced to do in talking, that I get drained, as opposed to you know how you stated and Dawn stated, as an introvert, when you go to parties, you need to internally, come back home and kind of take a breather, like, all right, I need a breath right now. But when right out of college, I was working at a risk management. So basically, I was working in collections, and I would make calls. I was drained by the end of the day because I had to talk. Like, that was my job. So it was like I didn't want to talk then, because you were making me talk. Like, I wasn't enjoying it.
It wasn't your choice. That makes sense.
And then certain things, like, I feel like extroverts, some people think we're okay with being vulnerable or stating certain things about ourselves. That is very uncomfortable, I feel, for introverts and extroverts. Like, being vulnerable and stating things about yourself. I feel like people think extroverts it's easier for them to do that, but that's very difficult.
I did think that. Thank you for sharing that. I did think that.
I believe, again, because those titles or definitions or words are not for everybody. Like, I'm comfortable sharing, but I believe some of that is because of my upbringing. Like, I came up where, shy was not cute.
Right.
My grandmother raised me, so being a young musician, I'd be watching Mickey Mouse, and she'd call me in. So we had an oil business, and after hours, it was in a home office. So people came up the back stairs to the kitchen to pay their bills, and she'd be talking about me, and she'd say, "Oh, come up here and play the organ for so and so." And in my head, I'm like, I'm watching Mickey Mouse, But so when you're always pushed out front, and that's how I communicated. I was easily sharing, and especially if it's something that I've conquered. I just believe some of that is a part of my gifting too. So I'm just saying it's everybody's different. Even if you're, right before my technology did what it did, I heard something, and I hope I'm not being redundant. There was a statement made, and I definitely want to come on to say that it's even for an extrovert, it's not always easy.
Did she freeze?
Yes, she
She
did.
did.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
And she's freezing.
It's probably this storm.
Yeah. I don't know where everybody else is, but it's storming here.
It's very stormy.
It's very stormy.
I think I'm the only one where it isn't. So
Oh, where are you located?
I'm in Minnesota.
Oh, how's the weather out there?
It's the sun just came out. It's been
Nice.
a little cloudy today, so it's actually really nice today.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna talk on what Bryant was saying in regards to, when society has these labels, introvert, extrovert, left, right, it all depends on other factors as well, how you were raised, your environment, sometimes your profession. And then sometimes people are actually led by their profession. There's some studies that say extroverts are attracted to certain professions and introverts are attracted to certain professions. Now, Dawn, I too was an executive assistant for many years. And, but right now I'm now a brand designer, which I absolutely love, but I'm still working with people, but it's one-on-one or one-on-two, and it's a more intimate level than a whole band of people all at once. And do you all find that it's true that, professions kind of suit the extrovert and the introvert?
I think so. I think a lot of people are, like you said, they're drawn to what they enjoy, what they're comfortable doing. Like my dad's an extreme extrovert and he's a fantastic salesman. I mean, he could sell snow to Eskimos. But he's fantastic. I'm a terrible salesperson. If somebody says no, okay, thank you, and I move on, right? I don't overcome objections. I don't, none of that stuff that he keeps digging and whatever. But I think that's true. And I was also, I just wanted to mention, I think there's a lot of cultural stuff in there too, in that it's more okay if you're a woman to be an introvert than if you're a man. And it's less okay to be an extrovert as a woman than it is as a man. And I don't know if that's still true, but I kind of feel like as I was growing up, that was kind of the way the world was, or at least my little corner of it.
I believe in some areas it still is. Because, a woman should be refined and, now if I know how to act when I, when I go to certain places, but on a regular, as Cadet will tell you, yeah, I'm me,
Right,
just,
you do what you get.
Yeah, this is, and then with maturity, can I tell you, I am so comfortable with myself. I'm goofy behind the closed doors. I laugh at myself, with myself, by myself. So it is just okay.
It really is. Really is. I think we have to learn to take the information that we find about ourselves and use it as a resource or information and apply it where it's necessary. And it's good to know certain things about yourself so you can determine, okay, I understand this about myself. Do I need to enhance it? Do I need to change it? Do I need to develop out of it? Does my culture enhance it? Do I need to take a deeper dive into some things? So I agree with the culture and impact a great deal.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is so good. I apologize. I believe the storm is kicking
That's
things.
what we're saying.
So yeah. Well, listen to this. I want to give you some. Tell me if you're surprised or not surprised. But famous introverts.
Okay.
Albert Einstein.
Not surprised.
Yeah.
Rosa Parks.
Not surprised.
I kind of like this one on that.
Yeah, I'm like in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe what we saw, and this is why you can't just go by the label. I believe what we saw from Rosa Parks. I mean, she said she was tired, but I believe some of it was a passion and a defiance. So all of those things. There are other things that can transcend whether or not you're an extrovert.
I like that one.
I'm thinking about it. I wonder how many times she sat down and until she did it. Now that I'm thinking about
that.
Yeah.
You can just get tired, like, okay, enough is enough.
And knowing my husband, like he analyzes everything before he makes the move. So she probably analyzed everything that happened in her head before she actually did it.
But you know what's interesting? I'm a quick thinker. Like I analyze. I'm always I can overthink. Like I had to really work with myself about overthinking. Well, why did they say that? What was their motivation for saying that? And taking things personal. I worked very diligent on that, you know, for myself. So I'm also, I just believe maybe I process different. I don't know, quick. I don't know.
Right.
But I, you know, I'm just saying, I too, I think about stuff, and even if I'm not processing it right then, I will walk away and I'm gonna play it back. Like, okay, what was really happening here? So,
Right.
you know, Bill Gates,
I could
I
see
can
that.
see that.
Yeah.
Steven Spielberg,
Oh.
Oh, that's surprising.
Oh, that is surprising for me too.
and Sir Isaac Newton.
I wonder why the Steven Spielberg is surprising to us. Why do you guys think that is?
It's
I think
probably
it's because
because
he's a
of
movie guy,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So he's
Right,
interacting
yes.
with people constantly,
Right. That's
right?
me too.
But I think
Yeah.
that speaks to what Brian was saying about sometimes things transcend what you are, meaning that like I sing on our praise and worship team, and that puts me in the front. Which you know, I like being in the background and doing stuff. But when you love something, and when you're
Yeah.
passionate about something, it transcends. You don't even think about what is it that you like or don't prefer. It is the dream or the vision or what you love that transcends what you are. So. So it's interesting that we would think that he's an extrovert because of what he does, but what he does and what he loves transcends what his you know his temperament was, so he can realize his dream. That's interesting.
And now, for myself, I am one of those, and I believe Michael Jackson was that way. And I don't know what I didn't look him up, but like Michael Jackson, I'm fine. You can put me in front of as many people as you want to, but a lot of that was my upbringing, because I've been standing in front of people since I was 14 months old. And again, I didn't have an opportunity to be shy. That doesn't mean I'm not uncomfortable. Now, you want me to be uncomfortable? Well, I can't say that anymore. I'm a career counselor, so I do presentations, but I also have to do lots of one-on-ones. I had to conquer that. I hated the one-on-ones. I was so uncomfortable. So that's not what I wanted to do. I didn't, and that's where you had to dig and really, that was where the meat of everything was at, to find out, but I just let me present. I just want to get the information out there. I didn't want to deal with all of this other stuff. So yeah.
That's the vulnerability that I'm talking about in extroverts, that I feel like sometimes are perceived as comfortable moments for us, but they're not.
Wow.
No. And that's
in front of them.
But Rachel, now the same way Fredette and Dawn were talking about being drained. You want to drain me? Let me have to do like 5 to 10 one-on-ones in one day. I am beat.
Really? That's interesting. I love one-on-ones. I love one-on-ones.
And you're good at
it.
You know why? Because I feel like there's a different direction that introverts and extroverts pull from. When you are I feel like when you are more an introvert, you pull inwardly. When extroverts, I feel like you pull energy in. So when you have to pull energy in from 10 individuals, that's a lot of energy you got housed in the inside. You're like, let me just get a break.
It's a lot. The one-on-ones it's so much more. That's just, I have to think about that some more. That's interesting.
Oh, I love it.
And you're good at it. So, famous extroverts.
Oh, here we go.
Bill Clinton.
Definitely see that.
Yeah.
Johnny Depp. Now that's surprising to me.
That surprised me too.
That's surprising. He seems so.
I think he walks on the line.
I don't really.
He's like, what's the word? Eclectic. He's just.
Yeah.
And he seems more like to himself, introspective.
Really? Oh. That's interesting.
It is. Steve Jobs.
Huh.
Oh,
Okay, that surprises me just a little. Just
everybody
because
calls
of,
on that.
and it's my perception that techie people tend to be introverts.
Yes, that's what it is to me too. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's-
and that's good. That's a good word. Our perception, our filters. Like I think techie people are introverts, and that's interesting. I thought,
Yeah, that's different.
That is.
Muhammad Ali.
yeah,
I
well,
can see that.
yeah,
You know, I get it, but I believe we never had the opportunity to really see him. I mean, we see movies, and I think that's what everybody like. You only see what you see.
Right.
You
right.
know, it's like
And
okay.
it's so interesting how we're so surprised and not surprised at some people because we're just basing it on what we see.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so
You
that's
know,
what happens to us. Like, we're basing it on what we see. So because of what I know of you, which is very little, you're this. Because
You
of
don't
what I
know.
know of you, we just don't know. And so we
That
think
you
you
know a
do
person.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
It's
because
not-
you do this, aren't you an extrovert? Because you do this, aren't you an introvert? And that
Oh.
applies beyond the introvert and extrovert. We take this little snippet of what we know of people and just put them in these categories. That's
And
interesting.
I have to move the word no and leave it at what we see and perceive because
Yeah.
is when you've been intimate with a person, you've had private time and it's deeper than just the surface, just to pass by hello. And a lot of people really don't know. They just see
Right.
what you do. And that's a whole nother
True.
topic.
That's true. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Oprah.
Really?
Is a what?
Oprah's a famous extrovert.
Extrovert. Okay.
I can see it.
Yeah.
I thought the opposite as well.
Yeah. And again, you really can't just, tag somebody.
Yeah, I think in my mind, that's how I had it.
I get it, that perception thing.
Yeah, perception.
Winston Churchill.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Politician. Got to talk.
But see that's just because you said that could be like, but that could be a politician.
Yeah.
Because when you
It's true. It's just my perception of what, you wouldn't go into that if you didn't like interacting with people, but introverts like interacting with people too. So I guess that's not really,
Yeah.
So I have to jump over here real quick because we were talking about Dawn, you don't know her, but our pastor, Cynthia G. West, I'm not certain what she is by taking the assessment, but she's a person that doesn't necessarily like to speak or talk. She doesn't like to talk. However, it's what she does for a living, and she's amazing at it. So that's what I'm just looking at when it's your assignment and you have to do something.
Right.
It's just different. I'm gonna have
That's
to
that
ask
transcending
her.
you were talking about. That transcending.
Yeah, because she's okay. She's okay with not speaking. I mean, this is what she said, but she talks a lot when she has to. Tom Hanks.
Is a what?
These are all famous
Oh,
extroverts.
extrovert. Oh,
I can see that.
And lastly, Bill Cosby.
yeah, I can see that.
I can see that too.
I would have thought.
I have to think about it, and again, some of it could be because of what he does. I mean,
Right.
It is, and I'm also like you said. I look at, from what I see on television or interviews, their mannerisms or their tone or their pitch or how they conduct themselves. And so when I see something that I categorize it as an introvert, I'm like, oh, their mannerisms. I think they're an introvert. So it's interesting how we have our own filters, and if we see something that looks like us, we think it is us.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. That's a good lesson for me. That's really good.
Yeah, I all of this is good for me.
Yeah.
Because I'm always looking at, better ways to have relationships, and that's why a lot of the reason why I do these talks, because you know, you can talk and not say anything. You're really not talking about anything. And relationships, I mean, we have them, we're in them, we're defined by them. So this is wonderful. Any last words for us, great extroverts and introvert people?
I guess my lesson is just don't judge who you think people are. Get to know them, and you know, and get to learn them. That's it. Just get to learn them. That's my greatest lesson in this. Like, don't think you know somebody just by their actions.
Yeah.
Like they could be introverts, even though you may perceive them as an extrovert.
Sure. So, Dawn, give us some last words that you'd like to share to people that don't take the time to
listen to the whole thing. You know, I really like a lot of what we talked about, in that it's important to take people as they are, not label them, just try to get to know them and accept them for who they are, where they are, and move forward from that, whether it's personally or professionally, or, you know, however you are interacting with them. Just really try to see them for where they are and who they are, and love and accept that, and move from there.
Excellent. But then give us some last words, or tell us something that you believe is important in regards to introverts and extroverts, or for people not to do because it's annoying. Like what annoys you?
It's important to not put yourself in a box. Whether you subscribe to the definition or notion of introverts or extrovert, or anything that is labeled, that when you find certain things about yourself, recognize and understand that you can develop into anything that you want to be. It's for you to decide where certain traits and attributes and characteristics, where they fit in your life. So if you subscribe to the characteristic or traits that there are introverts and extroverts, that doesn't mean that you have to act one way and you have to be one way. It's good just to take that information, and you have a greater understanding of yourself and why you do certain things. One thing that can be very frustrating is not understanding yourself. So sometimes things like this help you with language. And apply some type of language to what's going on. So like, okay, I have a greater understanding of that trait, and now I can either enhance it or develop it or erase it and transcend it into something else. So those will be my last words.
Excellent. I love it. I love everything that you all have just said. Richard says, correct, Rachel, more information needed about the person. Yeah. And again, that's dealing with the surface of just what you see. This is really, really good. And I'd like to do some more of this, even if it's not with the extroverts and introverts. I just think it's so good. It is so interesting to look at the differences in people. I look at you three, and I certainly could easily pick out something that I would definitely work to place in my life. And, you know, and I think that's what makes the world great. You know, I mean, if we were all like Rachel, or all like me, or all like Dawn, or all like Fidette, you know,
that'd be boring.
Yeah. Wait, Rachel, if it were all like you and I, people wouldn't get a word in, you know. And then
can you imagine? Like, people would probably start fighting. I'm not even like, who's gonna be quiet first?
It's true. It is true. It is true.
That's funny.
This is good. I would like to come back and just talk about relationships and covenants and those things, because I just see that so many people really don't know how to have healthy relationships. And that is so important to me, especially, I don't know, like maybe I'm just more mindful of it the more I mature, but it is work relationships, you know, all of the different types of relationships that you can have. You can have a good relationship, or at least a respectful relationship, you know.
Respectful.
Yeah. Even when there's conflict, like I can think of a couple of relationships that were very interesting for me, but I learned how to overcome it. I just believe we should think about that. and talk about that more. So I'm definitely going to look for a date for us to come back and just have a healthy conversation about relationships. And, if we're going to be here together in the world, come on, was it Rodney King? Can we all just get along, So, yeah. Well, ladies, I want to thank you so very much. This has been great.
Awesome.
I've learned a lot. And even though I'm not going to talk about my technology because I need to remain on until I get off. But thank you so much for coming on with me today. I appreciate you. Dawn, thank you for your time.
Yep, it's great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. For that, and Rachel, I thank you. And you guys, you'll be back because that's what we do.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Absolutely. This is great. And yes, I am charged. I'm an extrovert. I am charged. Yes.
It's true. About to go have the whole conversation I just had in the other room.
I love it. I love it. Well, guys, thank you so much for being here, and we'll talk real soon. Be well and be safe.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
having me.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Well, Facebookers, YouTubers, and to my podcast listeners, thank you so much for showing up today to talk about extroverts and introverts. And I hope you learned something that you can apply to your life that will assist you with your relationships, or whatever the other side. If you're an introvert, how to deal with an extrovert and vice versa. It's a great world. It's just the people in the world. So if we can be one of those people that makes things a little better, I'm all for that. I'm an extrovert. It is my joy to bring energy and to bring life. But I also want to have an understanding of those that are not like me in any way, whether it's their faith, their ethnicity, their race, whatever it is. I want to get an understanding so I can treat them well. And have a healthy relationship, whatever that might be. I want to thank Facebook. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Cynthia. I appreciate you being here. Remember to like and to share and to meet us back here next week on While We Wait. Be strong, be wise, keep enhancing your life because life is worth living while we wait. We all are waiting on something. So yeah, I will see you next week. I'm flying solo these days, so I have to do all this technology by myself. Appreciate you guys. See you next Thursday, 4:30.
I stay wise. I live in